Alrighty YouTube, welcome back. To get it out of the way, some things might look just a little bit different from the last video. I think the last video ended off with me finishing the transmission install. Yeah, we are multiple steps backwards. I'm gonna get into that though. First of all, to get it out of the way, I've disappeared for 2 months. Long story short, Make a long story short, I was going through some emotional stuff and it ended up with me and my girlfriend splitting up. Oh fuck, I thought I was over this. Yeah, me and her split up. I did not handle it well. And here we are, 2 months later from the last time I even looked at my GoPro. Now obviously it's not to say that nothing has happened because I'm currently sitting where there used to be a running and driving small block 400. That's right, off camera I had the truck together, running and driving, and we're to what you see here now. The last video you would have seen of Farmy would have been me bleeding the clutch and getting it ready to drive. I think the front fender was still off and the rad support and everything. What happened while we were gone is I got the rest of the truck together. I had to build a complete new 2.5-inch exhaust for it. Ended up getting the EFI back installed, got the truck running with the new exhaust. It sounded awesome. I took it for its first test drive kind of around my neighborhood. And that's when everything went downhill even worse. As if I needed more of an emotional downfall, the 400 in Farmy died on the first test drive, and it's most likely my own fault. So let's show you what happened.
Also, if you haven't noticed, I don't know how noticeable it is, but I got a new GoPro. In the midst of everything happening, my Hero 7 decided to die. It doesn't even turn on anymore, and the battery in here is fresh. It made an awful noise, and it hasn't turned on since. So I got an upgrade, and we are now running a Hero 10 Black. And the number one crazy thing that I actually want to say about that is thank you. The YouTube revenue that I've made since, I think, December was enough for me to cover the cost of buying a new GoPro. Because I was heartbroken. I didn't know what I was going to do without my trusty Hero 7 until a Google payment came in one day and was like, here you go. Here's your new camera. So that's all from you guys watching and sharing. I can't thank you enough. That's incredible to me. So to go over what I did to the truck while you guys were gone, like I said, I had to make a completely new exhaust system. And you're currently looking at the entirety of it. It's just 2 pipes that go back to some stainless mufflers back there, and that's it. It's a little hard to visualize without having the engine and the headers in here, but you can kind of get the point. I needed to make a very tight-fitting 2.5-inch exhaust system that would tuck between the frame. There's an oil filter that sits here, and the cross member is currently out, but the passenger side, there's a little bit of a bump there, goes over the cross member. The driver's side goes under. This exhaust, while the construction of it is a little excessive, yes, it actually sounds pretty good. I do have an audio clip of that I can chuck in here now. And there too, you can see the truck was fully assembled and ready to drive, just the hood and the grill was off. Now leading into why Farmy is currently torn completely apart again. Over on the engine stand here, you can see the small block 400 sitting with absolutely nothing left in it because the poor thing ate itself alive. The first thing I noticed is that the clutch pedal grabbed really high on the travel. The second thing I noticed was that the clutch wasn't actually grabbing fully. The engine would rev up to about 3,000 RPM, and then all of a sudden just go vroom to like 5 grand, come back down, and you could feel the truck kind of lurch forward as the RPM came down. Then the third thing happened. I was about 5 minutes into my test drive, and this bad boy started getting a rod knock. I came home immediately, parked it in my driveway, and noticed my oil pressure went from about 60 pounds to 10. This thing had nothing. When we had this apart before we put it in Farmy, we took some of the bearings out, looked at them, and they were all fine. So we decided, yeah, this is gonna be completely fine to use. So after I called my dad, he offered to come over. We tore Farmy apart in about 3 hours flat. This thing was still hot to the touch inside by the time we had it apart. And after pulling it apart, we found the catastrophic damage. The rear main bearing obviously ate itself alive straight down to copper. The thrust is pretty worn out. And then main bearing 2 also for some reason just decided to disintegrate. The rest of them are seemingly okay. And then the only other damage we found was that rod number 7 spun its bearing. That was where the knocking was coming from. This guy is absolutely torched front and back. I got really lucky, the main didn't spin at all, so the block is salvageable, but along with the crank, which is now destroyed, and rod number 7, it's at the engine shop getting work done. I should hopefully see it here by the end of the week. And of course, now that the engine's apart, I went inspecting other things, like the bores. We were told this engine had 70,000 K on it, but as you can see from these, I think it's got a lot more. I did take a couple of my piston rings off and I measured the gap to be roughly about 60 thou, which is way too big, probably deeming this about a 401 and probably really needing an overbore. I can't afford that right now. Boring is expensive, pistons are expensive, so all I'm gonna do to the block is just give it the old dingle ball hone with a drill and some WD-40, put some new rings in it, and call it good. And then digging into it more, looking at the other rods and whatnot, these bearings are not happy. Some of them, actually I think all of them, are basically down to copper where the parting line is, if not more. They're not great looking. So the inside of this 400 definitely needed to be refreshed, and it's actually a little bit nice that it grenaded itself. Not so much that I had to get the crank redone, but you know, at least we're addressing the problems now and we'll have something good to start with this time. Speaking of problems, what I believe to be the #1 reason why this thing actually failed, among just having high mileage and potentially other issues, I didn't set the transmission up properly. That's my own fault. And here's my reasoning for it. My original plan was to use a T5 with this bell housing on the back of the 400. That didn't end up working because the 400 needs a 168 tooth flywheel and that's way too big for the bell housing. So I changed to this NV3500. This is kind of where all the problem stems from and something that I just straight up didn't know. I ordered my clutch and pressure plate for a 79 small block 400. We're gonna take this guy to the bench. Because I changed to a different transmission, this is a 96 plus, I didn't realize they also changed the pressure plate. So I ended up ordering a new pressure plate and a semi-ceramic clutch disc you can see on the ground there. Not important right now. This is the big problem. You can actually already see it here. That pressure plate sticks out damn near almost an inch more than this one does. The fingers on this one also aren't exactly level. That could have been a manufacturing error or maybe my installation. At this point, I'm not sure. I really don't care. But what was happening? These fingers were sticking way too far out. This bearing didn't have enough clearance. So what was happening when I tightened the transmission on? The bearing was pushing into the clutch fingers, partially disengaging the clutch, constantly putting a huge forward load on the crank of the 400. And I believe that's where all the issues came from. Due to me not knowing that they changed pressure plates into this low profile one for transmissions like that, and me neglecting to measure and double check, much like I did on Rat 10 the very first time I set that one up, it caused all the damage you see here. And we got to start all over. Like I said before, the crank is at the engine shop. I'm getting 10 thou ground off it, oversized bearings for the mains and the rods, and rod number 7 is getting trued up. So hopefully everything's going to be good. I'm getting new rings as well. We will measure those and see if it's close enough to GM spec. If it's not, whatever, we're just going to send it anyways and just go from there. So that's where I've been. That's what happened to the project. That's what happened to me. I'm hopefully starting to get back into doing some YouTube stuff because I just can't sit here and do nothing anymore. It's been tough. You may have also noticed the pile of junk on the ground behind me in some of the shots. I'm getting ready for a swap meet this weekend. For the first time I think ever, I'm actually planning to sell some stuff. Am I gonna make money? I don't know. We're gonna find out. I do have some other good things planned though, due to these guys behind me here, Jegs. I guess I'll give you some teasers for the next upcoming videos. They sent me a locker for the 7.5 inch in farmy so that we don't have to weld the diff. That'll probably be its own video. I do have some other parts coming as well. I'm just not 100% sure if I'm getting them yet. But the other part that I do have and can confirm will be having its own video as well. Here's the teaser. Boom! That's all you're getting right now. Yeah, that's really about all I can rant about for the rest of this video. I hate that I took such a long unannounced hiatus, and I hate that I kind of just disappeared without saying anything, but emotions get to you, man. Life can be a little tough sometimes. So here I am. I'm back. I'm alive. The truck very much isn't, but we will be getting there very soon. I hope you're as excited as I am because the snow is starting to melt, and as soon as we get this thing back together, we can start doing some burnouts, drifting this thing, drag racing it, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. I hope you guys are excited, and thanks for watching.